Hi there, and welcome back to Simply Explained English for easy language learning. I am Lisa.
And I am Eric. Hey everyone, we're here to make English simple and fun for you.
Today we'll be talking about some words you hear a lot.
So, sit tight, relax, and let's dive into our words together.
Okay, Eric, what are the words today?
The first word today is silly. Then we will continue with embarrassed and to complain. Then, in addition to. And the final one is to pass away.
Okay, let's move on to our first word, Eric.
The first word is silly.
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 Silly means foolish, playful, or not serious. For example, the children were acting silly during the birthday party.
Another example could be, don't worry about making silly mistakes. Everyone does it sometimes.
Those are great examples, Eric. Now let's have a sample dialogue using the word silly.
Did you see the comedian's silly face when he told that joke?
Yes, it was so silly that I couldn't stop laughing.
I love how comedians can be so silly on stage and make everyone laugh.
Me too. Being silly is a great way to entertain people and have fun.
That's a useful dialogue, Amber. It shows how being silly can be a good thing, especially in entertainment.
Definitely. So, Eric, do you think it's important to be silly sometimes?
Absolutely. Being silly can help us relax, laugh, and not take ourselves too seriously.
I agree. Do you have any examples of when you've been silly?
Oh, sure. Sometimes, I like to make silly faces at my little sister to make her laugh. It's our silly way of bonding.
That's so sweet. It's great to have silly moments with family and friends.
Definitely. But do you think there are times when being silly might not be proper?
Yes, I think it's important to know when we should be silly and when we should be serious. Like, you wouldn't want to be silly during a job interview or a serious conversation.
That's a good point, Amber. It's all about finding the right balance and knowing your audience.
Exactly. Well, I think we've covered the word silly quite well. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Eric?
Just a reminder to our listeners that being silly is a great way to bring joy and laughter into your life. Don't be afraid to embrace your silly side when the time is right.
That's wonderful advice. And with that, we wrap up our discussion on the word silly. Okay, now let's move on to our next word. What's the next word, Eric?
The next word is embarrassed. It's a feeling you get when you're uncomfortable or shy because of something that happened. It's like when you make a mistake in front of others and feel a little stupid or bad.
We've all had that feeling, Eric, don't we? Can you give us 2 sentences using embarrassed?
Sure, Lisa. For example, he was embarrassed to admit that he had forgotten his friend's birthday. And the second, she felt embarrassed after calling her teacher mom by accident.
Great examples, Eric. Now, let's hear an example dialogue using embarrassed. Jake and Lily are at a school talent show.
Lily, are you ready for our performance?
I'm a bit embarrassed about singing in front of everyone.
Don't worry, I was embarrassed too. But we practiced a lot. We'll be fine.
Thanks, Jake. I'll try not to be too embarrassed.
In this dialogue, Lily feels embarrassed about performing, but Jake makes her feel better. It's normal to feel embarrassed sometimes, especially when trying new things.
I agree. Amber, have you ever been embarrassed, but then felt better after doing something?
Yes, I was embarrassed to speak in Spanish at first. But after I started practicing, I became more confident. What about you, Eric?
Oh, sure. One time, I accidentally called my teacher Mom in front of the whole class. I was so embarrassed.
Oh no, that must have been tough. How did you handle it?
Well, I just laughed and apologized. I realized that everyone makes mistakes and feels embarrassed sometimes.
That's a great way to handle it when you are embarrassed. Do you think there are ways to avoid feeling embarrassed?
I think Being prepared and practicing can help, like in the case of the talent show. But sometimes, you can feel embarrassed unexpectedly.
That's true. I think it's important to remember that feeling embarrassed is normal and that it passes with time.
Absolutely. It also helps to have supportive friends who can encourage you, as Jake did for Lily in the dialogue.
Agreed. Well, I think we've covered the word embarrassed quite well. Will you have anything else you'd like to add, Eric?
Just a reminder to our listeners that everyone feels embarrassed sometimes, and that's okay. If you feel embarrassed, don't let it stop you from being yourself and trying new things.
That's great advice. Thank you for it, Eric. Let's move on to the next word.
The next word is to complain.
To complain.
To complain. To complain means to say that you are unhappy or annoyed with something. For example, lots of people have complained about the noise.
Another example could be, if the service was so bad, why didn't you complain to the manager? Or, you're always complaining.
These are good examples. Now, let's have a sample dialogue using the word to complain. We will listen to someone complaining about a problem in a hotel.
Excuse me, I'd like to complain about the noise in my room last night.
I apologize for the inconvenience. Can you please tell me more about the issue?
The people in the room next to mine were very loud, and I want to complain about it.
I understand your frustration. We'll look into the matter and see what we can do to solve your complaint. Thank you for bringing this to our attention.
That's a realistic dialogue, Amber. It shows how people might complain in a real-life situation.
Definitely. So, Eric, do you think it's okay to complain sometimes?
Yes, I think. It's important to express your concerns or unhappiness when it's true. Complaining some problems can help make things better.
I agree. But do you think there's a right way and a wrong way to complain?
Absolutely. I think it's best to complain politely and calmly, and people should focus on the problem rather than the person.
That's a great point, Eric. Complaining respectfully can bring positive changes.
Yes, Amber. And do you think some people complain too much?
Yes, they do sometimes. I think complaining continually can be negative and useless. You might not get anything other than stress.
That's so true. Focusing on helping to solve problems in a proper way is the best thing to do.
Yeah, Eric. Before continuing, just reminders to our listeners that it's okay to complain when necessary, but it's also important to do so respectfully and to find a balance with positivity.
Agreed? That's excellent advice. Now we will be explaining the next word. The next word is in addition to.
In addition to.
In addition to. This phrase is used when you want to talk about something extra or more. It's like saying also or as well as.
That's a useful phrase. Can you give us 2 sentences using in addition to?
Sure, Lisa. Here's the first one. In addition to playing the guitar, he also knows how to play the piano. And the second one, she bought a coffee, and in addition, she got a cake.
Those sentences really show how in addition to is used. Now, let's have an example dialogue. Carlos and Maria are at a bookstore.
Maria, I'm getting this novel, and in addition to this, I think I'll grab this travel guide.
That's a good idea, Carlos. In addition to those books, do you want to look at the magazines?
Yes, let's do that. I love looking at the latest issues, in addition to reading.
Me too. In addition to the articles, the pictures are amazing.
In this dialogue, Carlos and Maria use in addition to talk about buying and doing more than one thing at the bookstore.
It's a great way to include more details. Amber, in addition to hosting this podcast, what else do you enjoy doing?
Well, Eric, in addition to this podcast, I love hiking and photography. What about you?
In addition to being here with you, I'm a big fan of cooking and trying new recipes.
Haha, that's a wonderful chat, Eric. I liked it very much. Listeners, remember that in addition to helps you add more information to your conversations.
We hope you add lots of new words to your vocabulary today, in addition to.
Wow, it was a fantastic example.
Thank you, Lisa. In addition to listening to our podcast, don't forget to study English.
This was also very nice, Eric.
Thanks again, Lisa. Okay, let's explain our last word. Our last word today is pass away.
Pass away.
Pass away. It's a polite and gentle way to say that someone has died. We use it to show respect and sensitivity when talking about death.
For example, my grandfather passed away last year.
Or, we need to attend the funeral of our colleague who passed away unexpectedly.
Let's set up a scenario with two characters, Emily and Josh, who are old friends, catching up after many years.
Josh, have you heard anything about Mr. Thomas, our old music teacher?
Sadly, I heard he passed away a few months ago. He was a great teacher.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. I wasn't aware he had passed away. He indeed was an inspiring person.
In this dialogue, Emily and Josh are remembering their teacher who passed away.
It shows how people can respectfully talk about someone who has passed away, remembering the good things they've done.
Amber, why do you think people prefer to use pass away instead of die?
Well, Eric, I think it's because pass away sounds kinder. It can be better for people to hear and say when they're sad.
That makes sense, Amber. It's about showing care and respect for others' feelings during a difficult time.
Exactly. Talking about the positive things that a person who passed away is a comforting way of dealing with this kind of sad news.
It's true, Amber. Speaking well about those who have passed away helps keep their memory alive.
So friends, remember that pass away is a kind of phrase we use when talking about death. It helps express sympathy and respect during sensitive times.
Okay, folks. Unfortunately, we have reached to the end of our podcast again. Thank you for joining us today on Simply Explained English.
We hope you've enjoyed learning new words and phrases with us. Remember to practice, stay curious, and keep improving your English. Until next time, take care and keep studying English.
Goodbye, and in addition to listening, don't forget to study the vocabulary you have learned today.
Bye-bye.